Hello, you're listening to On Israel, Al Monitor's podcast. I am Ben Caspit from Tel Aviv. The protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been going on non-stop for more than 6 months now. Every Saturday, tens of thousands of Israelis gather outside his official Jerusalem residence, his private Caesarea home, at major intersections and on bridges around the country, waving flags and banners. Netanyahu and his people had hoped the protest would die out. They were wrong. But the protest is also not taking off to the extent that its organizers had hoped. It is too fragmented, made up of different groups with different causes, and it lacks a cohesive leadership. Nonetheless, its energies propel thousands into the streets week after week, even in the rain and cold, all demanding one thing: Netanyahu, go home. Surprisingly, and against all odds, Knesset member Eli Avidar has become the political face of the protest. Avidar represents Yisrael Beitenu, the hawkish party of Avigdor Lieberman. He is a strange bird in Israeli politics, and he certainly does not fit the profile of a popular protest leader. The Egyptian-born Avidar was a successful businessman, director of Israel's Diamond Institute and Diamond Exchange, a foreign ministry diplomat who served as advisor to Foreign Minister Ariel Sharon and headed Israel's mission in Qatar. He has since maintained extensive ties in the Gulf. But his behavior in recent months has been anything but diplomatic. Avidar has become a modern-day Israeli variation of the 1960s French student leader Danny the Red, although he is hardly a socialist. On the contrary. Although he was only voted into the Knesset in 2019, his energies have left behind veteran opposition leaders such as Moshe Bogi Ya'alon, Meretz party leader Nitzan Horowitz, and Yesh Atid's Yair Lapid. He has become most identified with the protest, not them. He is the most outspoken, the most persistent, and the most photogenic. And his prediction that Netanyahu would be toppled once 300,000 protesters take to the streets has become one of the slogans of the protest. For now, the number of protesters is more like 30,000, but Avidar is not giving up. We will talk with him about the likelihood of new elections, about the new party formed by Gideon Sa'ar, about Avigdor Lieberman, and of course about the protest against Netanyahu and the chances it will change Israeli reality. Knesset member Eli Avidar will join us right after this brief commercial break.
If you're listening to this podcast, you obviously care about the Middle East, and if you do, you should probably be reading Al Monitor. Al Monitor is a global newsroom headquartered in Washington, D.C., with a network of over 160 contributors around the world. Al Monitor offers first-class reporting and analysis from a range of perspectives and an approach that represents the highest journalistic standards, as well as an award-winning commitment to press freedom and independence. If you haven't done so already, visit us at almonitor.com, check out our articles, and sign up for our free newsletters. There's a lot to choose from, including the Week in Review, an essay that offers unusual insights and forecasts into the region based upon Al Monitor's outstanding reporting. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our Al Monitor podcast on your favorite podcast platform, On Israel with Ben Caspit, and On the Middle East with me, Andrew Parasolidi.
Now we have the pleasure to say hello to Knesset member Eli Avidar, Yisrael Beitenu. Shalom, Eli. How are you?
Hi, Ben. Excellent.
All right, let's start. We're in the middle of a political chaos in Israel. Actually, we are talking on Sunday. We will be up on the air on Monday, and late on Tuesday, we will all know if you're going to the fourth election in a row or not. But first, let's talk about the protest against the Prime Minister. And I want to ask you, why do you think that you have become a symbol of the protest? Do you remember the first time you joined the demonstrators? What was the trigger? Was it planned move, or did just it happen?
I will start by saying that I didn't grant myself any title or any status in this protest, but I will say that uh, I'm trying to be consistent and as much as I can, very committed 24/7 on this protest. And it's basically started right after the third election that was carried lately and the formation of the coalition. I'm a member of the Knesset and I'm sitting in the committees and I see that the coalition of Likud, the ultra-Orthodox parties and Kahol Lavan are very consistent by voting 100% with the commandments of Benjamin Netanyahu. And I saw that there is no effect. I couldn't even have a discussion, a real discussion that we usually have in committees in the Knesset. And I understood that we are living in a situation where the coalition is really, really obedient. And this is why I understood that the salvation will not come from the parliament and there is a need to do something public. And this is why I went on the protest. And if you're asking for a specific date, the 5th of May 2020 was the first speech I gave in the General Assembly of the Knesset. It was called In the Name of Democracy. I spoke for something like 16 minutes explaining based on the book of Professor Robert Paxton, the anatomy of fascism, how he explained how countries in the 20th century in Europe became dictatorships, not because the people voted for it, but because there was a campaign against high public officials and basically making them quite weak. And the leader of the ruling party was able to transfer the status of the country from a democracy to a dictatorship. And I was trying to say to the Israeli public, you're really living in some kind of a dream that this will never happen to us, but it's actually happening.
Maybe I'll ask you now a follow-up question. I did not plan to ask, but you're talking about fascism. Do you really think, in the bottom of your heart, or when you're alone, that we in Israel, the Jewish state, can be a fascist state? Can Netanyahu become a real dictator, like Erdogan in Turkey, or Putin in Russia, or worse?
I wouldn't go for the term fascist because fascist is a specific academic term, and I wouldn't say that the situation here will comply with this. I will say that what Netanyahu did from the beginning of the corona crisis, that he used the corona by taking a lot of authorities that never had in the hand of any prime minister in the state of Israel since the establishment of 1948. So there are certain issues that if you see, let's for example see that the Shin Bet, the Internal Security Agency, is actually monitoring the cellular phones of all the citizens. This never happened since the beginning of the corona in any democracy around the world. Now, you ask me if this is a coincidence. No, it was an actual plan program dictated by Netanyahu. And the number one element that I would say that I was extremely concerned about, Ben, what was the first move he took in February 2020 at the beginning of the crisis of COVID-19. He basically put all the discussions in the cabinet, in the government about COVID-19 under shadow, and the public cannot know and read whatever is said in those discussions. And mind you, that this is a prime minister that he's willing to reveal the most secretive secrets of the Mossad of doing operations in Iran. But the discussions on COVID-19 is now a secret in front of the Israeli public.
Not only a secret, it's not only under shadow. It will be the government decided the protocols of all these discussions and committees about COVID-19 will be under censorship, under heavy censorship for 30 years. So you have to ask yourself, what do they have to hide from us? But let's go on, Knesset member Avidar. I'm curious, where did you come from with the digits, with the numbers of, if we will have 300,000 protesters, then Netanyahu will be toppled and go home?
Yes. You're asking me why this number?
Yes. I know there is a reason behind it.
There is a reason, and there is logic behind this number. With your permission, I will not reveal it, but I will just say that I'm monitoring Benjamin Netanyahu for the last 30 years. I believe that I know him quite well. And you know that I'm in a party that my chairman, Avigdor Lieberman, is probably one of the most familiar political figure with Benjamin Netanyahu. So I'm willing to say that I know some of the issues that have an impact on Netanyahu. For example, the demonstrations in front of his official residence. This is something that takes him off control. And the 300,000 protesters, I believe that will be some kind of a move, some kind of a change that will topple the government. It will have an effect not only on Netanyahu, but on the circles that Netanyahu counts on the public officials that Netanyahu is able to basically bring them to total obedience to his sometimes crazy ideas. So that's why I believe that a massive demonstration of 300,000 people in front of the official residence will do the change.
You know, your leader, Avigdor Lieberman, is not a guy that you automatically will connect with this protest. And you became one of the most outspoken leaders of the protest. So one can ask himself, is it a stunt, a political stunt or maneuver to mobilize support among the protesters like Yair Lapid did in the 2011 protest, or is it unique and authentic?
First of all, you know, you're asking a politician, so I'll definitely tell you that it's authentic, but let me substantiate this, this statement by saying this. First of all, I didn't do it for voting. If you will go into my Facebook page or my Twitter account, and you will see what people are writing me. For example, leave your party and then we will vote for you. I usually reply, don't vote for me, go on protest. Join the Balfour demonstration on Saturday evening, because this is what's important. So I must confess that, yes, probably Avigdor Lieberman is not the type of a politician that will go on demonstrations. Definitely, it's not his cup of tea in terms of action, but he definitely supports it. He definitely supports that the public will start thinking about the orders coming from the government. The public needs to analyze what is said to them by members of the government and by Netanyahu himself. So, to return to your question, I didn't do it for people to vote for me. It wasn't motivated politically. The motivation was basically that there is a crisis. There is something that I cannot solve within the Israeli parliament because of the coalition, the obedient coalition. That's why we need to go on protest. And this is why I did it. In the end, you know, if you check the polls, you see that I'm not getting major votes from the public that is active in those demonstrations, and I totally accept it. This was not the motivation.
Last question about the protest. Do you think Netanyahu and his people are using the police to crack down the protesters? What marks would you give the police for its handling and containment of the protest? Are you worried about potential violence by some pro-Netanyahu activists? And have you felt personally threatened?
First of all, let's start with the police. I give them the mark 0. I give them the mark 0 because Netanyahu is using the obedience of the police to the authority, the higher authority. And this is why, then, if I may say so, we need a constitution. We need a constitution that stands beyond the parliament and beyond politicians. If you take, for example, what happened a few weeks ago in the United States, I envy the American system where the chief of staff, after there were rumors that Donald Trump is trying to activate a major military campaign right before he's leaving the White House. And it was written in the papers that, let's say, the chief of staff and other people in the government were opposing it. So the chief of staff went to the national, the military museum, and he gave a speech which was amazing. We do not comply our allegiance to king or queen, and we do not pledge our support to a dictator. We do protect the constitution. And we in Israel do not have a constitution. And that's why the police, when they receive orders, they have to calculate and take a position. Unfortunately, until now, the police is totally obedient, but they forget. And it is our role to remind them that we live in a democracy. And in a democracy, the role of the police is not to stop demonstrations, but definitely to allow them, to make them happen. And this is something I cannot see right now. I hope with the new chief of police, this will change. But I'm not extremely optimistic. You asked me about...
did you feel threatened?
I personally don't feel threatened, but a few weeks ago, there was an ultra radical right-wing guy that went on Facebook and sent me a message. You need a bullet in your head. And I really didn't pay attention to it. My aides basically went to the police. The guy was arrested, and the police is pressing charges against him. So I don't know exactly what happened with him, but I'm really afraid for the safety of the protesters, and I'll say why. If you go into the demonstrations, you will see that 90% of the people are at the age of 70, 60, sometimes 80. And sometimes they are confronted by very radical pro-Netanyahu demonstrators. And they are very loud, they are very violent in some of the cases. And the police is not making an effort to stop those radicals. The police is actually trying to stop the demonstrations. This is the irony and the sad situation that we are living.
Do you think we can reach a civil war in Israel? Is it a real danger? Or, after all, we don't see many Netanyahu supporters in the streets.
We don't. We see that, I always say that if you check exactly how many people come to demonstrate, it's between 8 to 12 people. This is the number of people that Netanyahu has that go around. I wish that we will not have any civil war or something that will be major. But we have a situation, we have to be frank about it and realistic. We have a situation of a prime minister that will do everything and anything, basically, to keep his seat. And I told you before that I envy the American system. And you can see that even Donald Trump, that doesn't want to leave the White House, you can see that Senator Mitch McConnell basically gave a speech a few days ago and said, this is it. And he's a Republican. Yet you
don't see a similar phenomenon in Israel or within the Likud. Everyone is either pro-Netanyahu or anti-Netanyahu, and you're worried.
They are anti-Netanyahu when they talk to you in secret rooms, in closed rooms. They are extremely pro-Netanyahu when they are interviewed by the media or they have to give public statements. They all speak exactly what he tells them to speak, and this is worrying. But I always ask myself, when will be the trigger of the Israeli public to go on a major demonstration? And I'm speaking about 300,000, and I do not understand, honestly speaking, why we do not have 1 million demonstrators in the street when this guy, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, is destroying the economy, is managing the COVID-19 crisis within his political interest. I do not understand what is happening, and I'm criticizing myself as a politician that I'm not doing a better job, and I have to do a better job in this situation.
Let's turn to politics. It will be not fair to ask you to predict or what's your assessment about the really huge political drama we are stuck in right now. There were negotiations all over the weekend between Netanyahu and Gantz in efforts to reach a compromise that will allow this government to exist and will secure Gantz's turn as Prime Minister 1 year from now. So when this podcast will be aired, it will be actually the moments of the decision. So I will not ask you this. I will ask you about the new star in the political arena, Gideon Sa'ar, who is already taking away voters from everybody, from your party, from Bennett's Yamina party, from Blue and White, of course, from Yesh Atid, and from Likud. Do you feel betrayed by some of the voters? Without Avigdor Lieberman, in the first round of election in 2019, Netanyahu would form a government and get himself immunity from the trial, and everyone was sitting in his home right now.
Absolutely. Let me start by saying that Gideon Sa'ar is not a newcomer to our political system. He's now the blue-collared eye boy in town, but this is why we see him soaring in the polls. But let's give him some time. I believe that this is the nature of the Israeli public when they react to new names, new parties in new polls. I do not believe that he will stay in this high predictions for his party. He will need to maintain his glory for a very long time to bring new names and to do stuff. But the fact that I told you that he's not a newcomer, it means that we know him quite well, and he has a very clear agenda that was exercised in the last in many years as Minister of Interior and other positions. He's very clear about his position of state and religion. So I believe that some of the people that right now are responding in polls that they will vote for him, when they will be reminded of his position, positions on the various issues, I believe that this will go down a little bit. But regarding the reaction of the Israeli public, I personally do not feel betrayed. I take it as a note for us to do a better job. And the fact is that in the last 3 rounds of elections, we had between 5 to 7 mandates from Kahol Lavan that responded in polls that they are considering voting for my party. And 1 week before the election, the media advisors of Benny Gantz took out some kind of a very simple video or a statement or an ad in the papers. For example, in the last round, they say, we are going to form a secular unity government. And 7 mandates moved from Yisrael Beitenu to Kahol Lavan. So I definitely can blame the Israeli public for being naive, but I prefer to say that we did not do a good job enough, and we have to do better.
Do you believe Gideon Sa'ar when he's saying out loud that he will not sit with Benjamin Netanyahu in any circumstances, after so many people believed Benny Gantz saying the same, and then joining Netanyahu. I guess only Yair Lapid and Avigdor Lieberman really kept their word on this issue.
Absolutely. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Not that I'm saying that he's lying. I'm just saying that when he will reach a point where he will see that there is an opportunity, I believe that he will take it. There are very, very, very few politicians, and one of them whom I'm close to is Avigdor Lieberman, that Netanyahu tried to seduce and to convince to go in. And if you remember the first round of election in April 2019, we were 5 members of Knesset, and he offered us everything, ministerial positions, deputy prime minister, even a position within the Likud for future to replace Netanyahu as leader of the Likud. And we said, no, we do not want to speak about ministerial positions. We would like to speak about the agenda. And Netanyahu never speaks about the agenda because the agenda is always flexible. The agenda, he cannot speak about the agenda because it always changes in accordance with his political interests. So that's why if we go back to Gideon Sa'ar, I believe that we need to see who will be in his list of candidates. I believe we have to see who those people are. And if you just ask me about Gideon himself, if there will be no other choice, or if he will see an opportunity, he will definitely sit with Netanyahu.
Is there a chance that your party, which is distinctly anti-clerical, Avigdor Lieberman is actually in war with his former friend Aryeh Deri and all the other Orthodox. So after all this, can you sit or join a government with the ultra-Orthodox parties in order, to topple Netanyahu and get a majority?
Ben, I'll be very honest with you. We explained that the aggressive attitude adopted by the ultra-Orthodox parties, Shas and Agudat Israel, excluded them, as far as we are concerned, from being in the next coalition. We sat with them in the past years, but they took an advantage of the shaky situation of Netanyahu, shaky legal and political situation of Netanyahu, and went on a campaign to destroy the status quo on religion and state subjects. And as you know, my party is very keen on maintaining a status quo, and we do comply, or we do believe in the sentence of live and let live. We are not trying to impose our secular way of life in religious cities, but we definitely do not want to let the ultra-Orthodox parties to impose their way of life on cities like Tel Aviv. There is a difference between Bnei Brak and Ramat Gan, between Bnei Brak and Tel Aviv, and this difference doesn't need to be destroyed. It needs to be celebrated, because this is the strength of the state of Israel, that we celebrate our differences, our different cultures, our different beliefs. But they take it as they take basically the shaky situation of Netanyahu, and him being so weak and dependent on them, and they went on this campaign. That's why we do not see how we can sit with them.
Last political question, because we're out of time, and I want also to get a chance to ask you one question in the end about coronavirus. But the last political question, you can answer me briefly. Do you think Avigdor Lieberman's dream to become the Prime Minister in Israel is still possible?
It is possible, but Lieberman declared more than once that for him becoming Prime Minister is a desire, but definitely not an obsession. The status as a leading candidate for Prime Minister will be reasonable if we will get in the polls, or in the elections, of course, around 20 mandates. If you don't have 20 mandates, this is something we cannot take into action. There is one exception in Israeli politics. This is the mayor of Jerusalem. He is the mayor of Jerusalem with not even one member of council. But this is one exception that I don't believe that we can impose or have it here in Israel.
A word about the coronavirus. You're perhaps not a COVID denier, but you have claimed several times that Netanyahu is making political use of the pandemic, and you have even declared just now that you would not get vaccinated for now. Is this a responsible position for an elected official?
In my opinion, yes, and I'll tell you why. I am a graduate of SARS while I served in Hong Kong as Consul General. I saw exactly, and I saw how a much greater crisis was handled by a political government. And I want to be clear, Netanyahu has been using COVID-19 since the beginning for his political interest. He took advantage of the anxiety of the Israeli public from COVID-19 and made even efforts to intensify this anxiety among the public. He took powers to himself, powers that were never in the hand of any prime minister. I basically said that I was asked if I would get vaccinated and replied that I'm not in a risk group and therefore I will not get vaccinated. If you want to know what is the responsible position of politician, we are living in a democracy, and therefore nothing should be forced on citizens. And I do believe that people should think and shouldn't automatically comply and being obedient just because the prime minister has said so. Definitely if we don't trust him, definitely if we see that he's trying to maneuver the political system to escape his legal problems and courts. That's why I do believe that people should think. And if there is something, when they ask me, I didn't say don't go get vaccinated, although the spokespersons of the prime minister are saying so. I didn't say that. I say that if there are people in a risk group and they want to get vaccinated, they should. And even they are not in a risk group, if there is a young guy of the age of 24, 25, and he's terrified because of COVID-19 and it doesn't allow him to live normal life and he wants to get vaccinated, he should. There is no problem with that. But even if there is someone in a risk group at the age of 80 and he does not want to get vaccinated, it is his freedom. We are living in a democracy where people should think and should have the freedom of choice. If we would live in North Korea like Netanyahu wants to bring us to this kind of system, the prime minister says, get vaccinated. We all need to get vaccinated. Do this, do that. This is not the way democracy is working, and definitely not the Israeli democracy as I want to maintain it as a politician.
Knesset member Eli Avidar, it was fascinating. I thank you very much for this conversation. We will be just back after a short commercial break with some final thoughts. Thank you. Toda rabba, Eli. Toda.
Thank you very much.
I'm Andrew Parasolidi, president of the award-winning media news site El Monitor, where we cover the Middle East with some of the best reporters and columnists anywhere. And I'm excited to announce our new podcast on the Middle East, where each week I will interview newsmakers from the U.S. and the region about the latest news and trends with additional commentary from our on-the-ground correspondents. Those of you who follow the region know that what happens in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. And to cite another great movie line, every time the U.S. tries to get out, the region pulls us back. Your time is valuable, so let me promise you this. You will learn something and you will never be bored, because each week we'll be talking with and listening to those leaders who are making the news and shaping the trends in this critical and fascinating region. So please subscribe to On the Middle East with me, Andrew Parasolidi.
Thank you for staying with us. In the eye of the storm of the unprecedented political crisis in Israel, Knesset member Eli Avidar from Yisrael Beitenu and one of the most outspoken demonstrators against Prime Minister Netanyahu says he joined the protest movement last May after he realized that crisis cannot be solved only in political tools. Avidar is optimistic regarding the chances to topple Netanyahu, either in mounting protest or fourth election. He believes that Avigdor Lieberman's chances to become Israeli Prime Minister one day are not doomed yet. He fears Israel is on the verge of becoming a semi-democracy instead of a stable and flourishing one, and blames Israeli police of becoming one of the most efficient tools of the regime to crush the public protest. I think it's enough for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you next Monday. This is Ben Caspit from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much. Take care.